Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today on Story of an Atheist, I'd like to share the recording of a conversation that I had with a fellow Nigerian atheist. Now, this guy is a journalist, a writer, an activist. You must have seen him on Twitter. He is very, very passionate about this country. He exposes a lot of bullshit that this government has been doing. And sadly, because we have animals in power, he has to go in hiding for his life. And it was kind of surprising. I was shocked that he actually agreed to have this conversation with me, to share his story as an atheist. Being an atheist, being a journalist, being a writer, sharing his whole story and knowing his current situation, being on exile. And I really appreciate him for giving me the opportunity to talk to him despite the risk. So before we hear the recording of our conversation, please kindly subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or any other place you get your podcast. Then please check us out on Clubhouse, the Free Thinkers Hangout. We create rooms at least once a week to have discussions on different issues that are bothering us. So please come. If you're using Android, it's available on Android now. Clubhouse is available on Android. So please join us, have discussions, or if you're unable to talk, sit down and listen. Whenever it's safe for you to contribute, and it's all good. So without any delay, let's go and listen to the recording of the conversation I had with David. I think it was in June or so. Hello, David, and welcome to Story of an Atheist.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for accepting my invite. How are you doing today, man?
Well, as well as it's possible to do under the circumstances. So not very well, but well enough.
Yeah, it's Nigeria is really a case, but we move. We move
one way or the other.
Yeah. So the listener right now would like to know who is on the other end of this episode. Your name. They like to know your name. Now your location, we don't want to know that. Understanding your circumstance. Instead of asking your age, what I usually ask is Gen Z or millennial, that kind of thing. Right. Then, what do you do for a living?
So my name is David Hundeyin. I am definitely millennial, later stage millennial, but still millennial. Actually, no, sorry, mid-stage millennial. I'm right in the middle.
All right.
I do a lot of things, but what takes the majority of my time, what makes up the majority of my portfolio is investigative journalism. More than that, I'm actually a writer. Journalism is just one of the ways in which I tell stories.
Yeah,
I'm a writer, but I'm best known for being an investigative journalist. However, in my previous iteration, I actually used to write for a TV comedy show. You might have heard of it. It was called The Other News with Oke Bakassi. It was on channel. Yeah, it was a political satire show, modeled after the format of The Daily Show, whichever know. And I was a writer on the show. Yeah, so that was me in a previous iteration. Before then, I used to work in PR. So I've reinvented myself 3 or 4 times in the past 7 years. So but yeah,
writing is the cocoa.
Sorry, what?
I said writing is your main.
Yeah. Writing is the mainstay. It's what brings the bread home. So yeah, I'm currently in exile. Can't go back home. Otherwise I'll get deported, which I would prefer, not to happen, because I think I still have some time. I'm under asylum protection actually, which is why I'm not allowed to state which country I'm in. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to know about me.
Wow. That's not an easy situation, man.
No, it isn't. It isn't at all.
Wow. So now, our listener would like to know, what was your religious background like?
Okay, so I was raised as a Jehovah Witness. My parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. My sole surviving parents, my mom is a Jehovah Witness still. So I was raised in the Jehovah Witness family, and if you know a thing or two about anyone who knows something about the Jehovah's Witnesses understands how
militant.
I don't want to use the term closely knit, because that sounds very that sounds very tame and harmless. How
culty?
I don't want to use the term cultic either because like I haven't built up. It's accurate, but I haven't built up to that yet. So I'm looking for something. I'm going to say how. Let's just leave the adjective that I'm looking for. But suffice to say that it's a highly incestuous, highly restrictive, highly controlled environment. So the people you interact with, the work that you do, the recreational activities that you have, your hobbies, pretty much your entire life, as you know, it is dictated out of Brooklyn, New York, by 12 white men.
High control.
Yes, exactly. It's the definition of a high control group, right? And I was blessed, cursed with extreme self-awareness from a very young age.
Okay.
So I would say from when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, I already knew that I didn't like this. I didn't want to do this. Now, obviously, I had been brought up and brainwashed, to believe that it was the truth, right? They actually use the term the truth to describe themselves. So it's the truth. It's like if you've heard of a term called neuro-linguistic programming. Jehovah's Witnesses are the chiefs and high priests of neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
They have all manner of terms and terminology and lingo and languages and jargon specifically created and designed and intended to keep you to keep you in a feedback loop. Right? It's true because it's true because it's true because it's true, and so on like that. So the longer you spend
their Bible, have you?
Exactly. They have their own Bible translation. They have several hundreds of books, which they release almost on a yearly basis. So my family library at home, for example, there are actually 2 family libraries at home. There was a regular library, and then there was the religious library, the JW library, where I don't think we had anything fewer than 1,000 unique publications in there. So it's essentially possible to spend your whole life doing nothing but reading nothing but JW propaganda, basically. So, which is why the longer you spend in there, the more difficult stroke impossible it is to actually get out, to actually live a productive life outside. Even those who do get out at a relatively older age, more than often end up going back because they simply don't know how to function in the world outside. Because that's how good it is at controlling your life. Now, from that early age, I decided that this wasn't what I wanted to do. I had seen enough of I'd seen glimpses of the lives that my friends from school had outside of the JW, cult. And I knew that this was what I wanted. I didn't want to go to a Kingdom Hall 3 times a week and sit down and listen to people saying things that I wasn't interested in. I didn't want to go out carrying a bag every Saturday and Sunday in mile 12, K2, Ikosi, walking around, dirty face me, I face shoes that smell of pee. I knew I didn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
I knew, and especially as I got older, when I started to take more notice of the fact that these people we were going to talk to were suffering. There's no other way to put it. We're actively suffering. And then to put that in context, we lived in an 8-bedroom mansion in GRA. We had 6 cars.
Wow.
So then we had this extremely, almost offensively privileged lifestyle. And then we go to the Kingdom Hall, park our nice car there, and then get down on foot and start walking around with our bags, performing humility and telling poor people that their problems can be solved by the kingdom of God, and really, what could solve their problem? Maybe if you could sign a check for them, that would solve their problem. But instead, they are there bullshitting them and telling them, feeding them tales. As I got older, I started to realize, I started to feel that there was something intensely immoral about that this was utter bullshit. You don't live your life on these terms, right? Yeah. You take practical actions. You are not poor and you will never be poor. So why are you going around telling people that it's okay for them to be poor and trying to maintain them in their poverty? Why on earth would you do that? I found that I found that increasingly offensive the older that I got. I think it's a type of social consciousness that I started to develop almost on my own. So I think it was when I was about, let me say 14 or 15.
Okay.
Again, I still thought that this thing was somehow the truth, but it just didn't jive with me. So that means that there was something wrong with me because, I didn't like the truth. And I remember around that time, one day, I forget what it was exactly that happened. And I remember just thinking to myself that, man, fuck this. Like, if, surviving into the new world or paradise, as they call it, whatever it is, resurrected, if the price of that is that I don't get to live the life that I want now, then I don't want it. After all, in that new world, who is it going to be? So those people I meet every week at the Kingdom Hall, those are the people who are going to be in the new world. And then all my friends from school, they are not going to be there because they're going to be destroyed. Because they're not Jehovah's. So why the hell would I want to be in a new world with people from the Kingdom Hall? I don't want to be there with them. So I literally made that decision that, you know what, if I'm destroyed at Armageddon, I'm perfectly fine with it. I couldn't obviously express that opinion, but I just had it in my head because obviously I was financially dependent on my parents. I was living under their roof, eating their food and their tuition fees. So I couldn't. So I think it was when I was 17, or when I was just about to turn 17. Actually, I was 16. I read. So how it actually started was it was actually like some random novel. I think it was a Dan Brown novel that I read. I forget the name. And it was just like an airport thriller kind of novel. It wasn't a serious thing. But there was something like randomly mentioned in the book that made me think, okay, like I want to find out more about this. I think it made a passing reference. It made a passing reference to 88 gospel accounts.
Okay.
And that was the first time I was ever seeing something like that. Like, because I'd always thought that there are 4 gospel accounts. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke. That's it. And then it so turned out that the family library at home, we actually had there's a particular Bible translation that has so-called, there's a term for them, but basically the other books of the Bible that weren't added to the Bible canon. They call them
apocrypha, something like that.
Apocryphal books, exactly. Yeah. And like that was the first time like the carefully constructed story of Christianity started to like sort of fray around the seams. Hang on, wait. Why didn't I know this before? Why haven't I been told before that there weren't only 66 books in the Bible and that it was a man who made the decision to pick these 66 books, and that there were apparently there were 88 known gospel accounts, and that it was a Roman Caesar of all people who made the call as to which gospel accounts to include in the Bible canon, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And that was when for the first time it sort of clicked in my head that, wow, okay, this is a Roman state religion actually for building and maintaining an empire. Yeah. That's actually what this is. This isn't some kind of like perfect ideology or something. This is statecraft. Like it just clicked in my head, like all of a sudden, like, wow, so this is what this is. And from that moment, I think it's fair to say, I mean, I didn't use the term atheist to describe myself until much, much, much later. But I think it's fair to say that at that point, that was where, to all intents and purposes, what you would describe as my atheism actually began. For the longest time, I used the term agnostic. Okay. Compared to myself, because I think agnostics are, they're probably going to come after me for saying this, but agnostics are atheists who are too pussy to be identified as atheists. So it's easier to just say, I'm agnostic, I believe in everything and I believe in nothing at all. Please leave me alone, don't hurt me. Because saying you're atheist sounds aggressive. It sounds like you're telling someone your God is a fraud. Your God doesn't exist. Fuck your God.
Fuck your God.
That's how it comes across. So that word sort of rubs people off the wrong way. So I didn't use it for the longest time. And in fact, a lot of the time, like when I'll be filling a form at maybe a Nigerian government institution or something, and there'll be a space for religion. A lot of the time, I'll just fill in Christian because it's just easier.
So avoid
it's just
the necessary discussion, explanation.
Yeah, to avoid like long stories. It's just easier. There was the one time I filled in none. And like literally, like it caused this huge furore. I think it was at the bank actually. I was trying to open a bank account. I think this was 2007 actually, when I just finished high school. I was getting into Igbenedion University, so I was opening my first bank account in Nigeria. It's a Zenith bank account. I can't forget. It was at Okada, at Igbenedion University, Okada branch, and I filled in none. And the guy, the customer service guy, just, what do you mean? Like, you feel? I said, yeah, none. And the guy was like, so like, are you not a Christian? I said, no, I don't. And then he just wouldn't stop asking questions, and then other people joined in, and it just became a circus. And from that point, I learned very quickly that there are some places where it's just easier to just identify yourself as them. So yeah, there was also a time when I went through a phase when I was going through my like Hotep Pan-Africanist phase after university, where I started identifying myself as a practitioner of African traditional religion. Yeah, even though I had no fucking clue what African traditional religion was, how to do it. I actually like went on YouTube and started like trying to like, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, trying to learn the Odu Ifa and whatnot, because that was like part of this sort of like perfect, African identity I was trying to build for myself. Much later, I sort of like grew out of that phase and realized that it's actually bullshit, African bullshit and Middle Eastern bullshit. It's still bullshit.
It's all bullshit because when like now this whole African religion traditional, I used to ask when people argue with me that okay, Christian is not, but Juju is working now. You believe Juju? I said no. Then I said, what? I said, look at now. If Juju was working, Juju had the perfect opportunity to prove itself when the Europeans came to invade our land.
Yeah.
And it failed on a massive level. So there's nothing you can tell me about Juju. Juju worked. Juju did not work when it needed to work. So all the one people are just saying, because a lot of thieves want Juju to be real, so that the villain is real, so the hero must be real. That is their own thinking. And it's really sad. That's what keeps the loop going. So they need that traditional religion to be real, so that they can also say their Jesus or their Allah is real, which is ironic. Which is very sad. So now, you said around that, it was around before you entered university. Now that's when you had that switch, but you were not identifying yet, Abi?
Yeah, I wasn't. I was intentionally not self-identifying as atheist. I think it wasn't until I got into university, because so I spent a year at Hundeyin, then I transferred, then I moved to the UK.
Okay.
So when I went to university in the UK, which obviously is a completely different, significantly more progressive kind of environment, I think that was where, for the first time, it became okay
to call yourself,
to be that thing. Yeah, like and it wasn't a big deal. Like if you say you're atheist, it wasn't a good thing or a bad thing. It was just a thing. It was like saying,
like, okay,
it was like saying you're Muslim or you're Christian or you're Buddhist or anything. Nobody really gave a shit. So yeah. So when I came back to Nigeria in 2013, again, I had to go through that circus of like identifying as Christian nominally, keeping up appearances. I was living in my parents' house up until 2015, so I still had to accompany them to their Kingdom Hall twice a week.
So when they never
once a week actually. No, they never knew. I didn't tell them because I was living under the roof. So something else you need to understand about Jehovah's Witnesses is that they have no problem with using financial situation against you, none whatsoever. So my parents were always very, 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 very blatant about it, that if you leave Jehovah, we'll leave you.
Oh,
yeah. So the expensive education you get to have, this lifestyle you get to enjoy, all of it, you're going to lose everything if you dare step out of line. They were very clear about that. So eventually in 2015, when I decided that I was done with it, I wanted to strike out. I also understood that meant I was turning my back on an economic side of things too.
Yeah.
I understood that clearly, but I made that decision. I guess what also made the decision slightly easier to make was that there was a woman involved. Like I was going off literally to get married to a non-Jehovah Witness, which is like one of the most forbidden things you can do. Yeah, so I thought I was in love, so I guess that made it easier to just sort of like tell them to go fuck themselves, which is pretty much what I did. Actually, I remember it was 1st of October 2015 when I moved out, and I literally had a shouting match with my mom. I'd moved out really, and I just come back, so I'd asked Dad if I could take, in the outhouse, there was like a disused fridge and AC and whatnot. So I'd asked Dad if I could take those things, and he had said yes. So I came back to the house to take them. And then like Mom sort of like started a shouting match, and I had a huge shouting match with her. And I basically told her, look, man, I'm not doing you and this, like carry down your religion and stuff it inside your pocket. I'm not interested, and that was that. And then a few days later, I came by with I didn't even invite them to my wedding. I just notified them that I'm getting married and I am fulfilling all righteousness by informing you. But this is not an invitation because I know you won't even come. So I'm not even inviting you.
Wow.
Because in my brother's case, they didn't go to his wedding because he did the same thing. He married a Catholic girl. So they didn't go to the wedding. So I was like, I'm not even going to give you that opportunity to turn me down. Yeah. So if you don't want to, like, you are not invited. I'm just telling you so that you know. Yeah. So yeah, it was a bit ironic, I guess, that the person I was getting married to wasn't actually atheist. Far from it, in fact. You know, the person was a Pentecostal.
Hi.
So which was interesting. So again, like something else that I later came to understand about myself was that even though I am functionally atheist, I don't believe in the sort of Judeo-Christian concept of a God or pretty much any known human concept of a God.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that I don't value any kind of religious belief at all.
Okay.
Right. Like so, and I'll explain what I mean by that.
All right.
Now, if you're talking about a Pentecostal who is like speaking in tongues, i.e., babbling like a child, you know, that kind of thing, I have no patience for such things. I'm not interested because this is just from top to bottom, it's bullshit. I can tell you where it came from. I can tell you who invented it. I can tell you what purpose it serves. The whole Pentecostalism in a nutshell is one huge flaming ball of trash, right? But if you were to tell me, for example, that you're Catholic, right? Yes, I know the Catholic Church itself has probably the longest history of being a flaming dumpster fire. We know that, right?
Yeah, so, yeah.
The child abuse kind of,
yes.
The constant meddling in politics over the centuries. We know that. The amount of bodies that the Catholic Church has on its tab. We know that, right?
Yes.
But if you were to tell me in a Nigerian context, say an Igbo person, for example, from Imo State or from Abia or somewhere is Catholic, the Catholic identity in that context, has it ever been constructive? To an extent, yes. So the mission schools, like typically basically what made the then Eastern region, which we now know as Southeast, basically what made it economically productive, the manpower that made it economically productive was essentially the result of Catholicism.
Oh, how?
Right, the Catholic Church literally went in and established mission schools all over the place. Like the Nigerian government on its own didn't have the ability to do those things, and probably wouldn't have even if it had the ability. Because why the hell would the Nigerian government go and spend its money to educate Igbo people? Those things don't happen in Nigeria, right? Yeah, it was the Catholic Church that did that. So I can sort of understand if somebody who adheres to a Catholic faith in Nigeria places some kind of value on it, I can see what value it might have. Right. So based on that value that it has offered, I can respect it. Right. Yeah. If you say a Methodist and the Methodists had a similar impact in the Southwest, I can respect it. I mean, my mom went to the Methodist Girls High School and she was there on a scholarship because her family was way too poor to be able to afford the tuition fees. Wow. But the school let her stay there because she was a gifted child. Right? Yeah. So, but if you tell me that you belong to some Izala sect of Islam from Jos, or you belong to Chris Oyaki Lome's church or David Oyedepo's church, I'm just like, I'm not interested in anything to do with you.
I went to the school. They are charging them serious money.
You know. So going back to what I was saying about being married to somebody to a Pentecostal, I tried the best I could to sort of make it work, to sort of ignore the contradictions and to just try not to get pissed off by the blah 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 thing that they used to do. So right, because I really but more it was more the case that the family she came from, was very, very much into the thing, and because I was coming from a context where like my parents really didn't want to fuck with me at that point. So I sort of got assimilated into this other family.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So then I ended up having to always be in the room when somebody's going blah, 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 and like I'd just be rolling my eyes like, what the fuck is this nonsense? But I couldn't express that thought. I guess these are the things that also contributed toward the eventual end of that relationship. It wasn't really going to work, to be fair. It wasn't really fair on either of us. But anyway, that's past tense. It's fine now. So, and then after that, I think that was when I really became sort of almost like militant about, you know, being known as atheist. Like I stopped hiding. Like I was in Nigeria and I said, fuck it, take your God and put it inside your jeans pocket. I don't want to hear, I don't want to know, like go away, take that shit out of my face. Nigeria is a secular country. That's what the Constitution says.
Exactly. Yeah. It's in theory, they're just theoretically secular.
Yeah. And that's pretty much the space that I've been at since maybe 2018. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that I'm going around telling religious people that they don't have sex.
Yeah.
But it means that when it calls for it, I'm not afraid to call them out on their bullshit. Like when recently I saw a video, the Greenfield University students that were kidnapped.
Yes, that's what the tweet I saw that really triggered me to reach out.
There were a couple of them who were rescued, and you were seeing the family members of the rescued people. Like it wasn't even as if like they were in a heightened state of emotion and thanking God out of that heightened state of emotion. No, it was more like yes, God has done it. Like our enemies have said something, but look how our God has blah blah blah. That kind of, and it was like, dude, how many of them died? So the God didn't do it for those ones. Like, what the fuck is your problem? Why do you have to come across as such a dick? You know,
you don't realize.
And that really triggered me. And I went on this sort of rant about it. Like, why do religious people have this obsession with being better than their neighbor?
Yeah.
Like instead of everybody being objectively better off, all you're interested in is you individually being better.
God did it for you only.
Why is that a thing? Like, why is that the thing? So yeah, and it got a bunch of responses. It got itself onto Insta blog and whatnot. I just muted.
They are very touchy when it comes to their religion.
I know it's not the first time because I've gone after their Daddy Geo before in 2019, and I know how that went. I have very, very, very thick skin, and I have a very, very, very active block button as well. So I'm not really interested in going back and forth with you.
Oh, well, you go tire for blocking, you know.
Yeah, I think on my block list, I have something like 4,000 people on my block list.
Wait.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't hesitate to use it. Like once you just come with a certain type of energy, and I don't want to engage, I don't want to interact with you, I just block. That's it. You'll be fine. Like I see it like I'm doing you a favor. If I'm really that much of an irritation to you, then I'm doing you a favor. You don't have to see me anymore. So I just block you.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Fucking hell. This country, man. Now, this whole your story now, there might be I don't know, maybe a questioning Jehovah Witness that is going through something similar of what you went through. What would you advise such a person to do with the whole high control environment?
The number one thing is to know what is going on inside your own head first. And what I mean by that is a lot of people who have these sort of doubts or who are not really enjoying their time there, or they just know something is wrong and they don't know what it is. The issue a lot of them face is that instead of sitting down to properly think through the issues, think through examine what is going on in their own head and decide what it is that they want, and then build a plan based on that objective information, they just sort of move around with this like toxic mix of emotions just swirling around in their head. And I think can make you do stupid things.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're in that situation, what you don't want to do is one day in a moment of rashness or weakness or whatever, you just go and blurt out to your folks that you don't believe in religion or blah, 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 because they will throw you out. They will do it. And I've seen it happen to other people, by the way. There's a guy currently I know of who is at university and he's putting himself through university because his dad kicked him out. So it happens, and they will. Don't think that your parents will hesitate to do it. They won't. They're Jehovah's Witnesses. They're brainwashed. They will do it.
Yeah.
My parents would have done it. right? If I gave them the opportunity to do it, they would have done it. In fact, my brother, who sort of gave them the opportunity to do it, although he was already in his final year in medical school at that point, they did it. So he was in final year at med school, and they cut him off financially. They did that.
Fuck.
So basically spent his final year. Thankfully, his tuition fees were paid, but he spent his final year in med school sort of like working side jobs as well to keep, to put food on his table.
Wow.
That's what Jehovah's Witness parents do. So think very carefully inside yourself, right? You don't need to express this to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely anybody. Like, you have to learn to be your own confidant, right? Because you can't really trust anyone in that situation. You really can't, right? Think about what it is that you actually want, right? Do you actually does this religion repel you on a doctrinal level? Is it something about the doctrine that repels you? And then if it turns out there's something about the doctrine that repels you, you then need to accept that if there's even one thing about that doctrine that repels you, it means that there's no midpoint. There's no negotiating with this thing. As soon as you have the circumstances that permit you to leave, you have to leave altogether. Because the JW faith is not a faith that allows you to mix and match. It's not a faith that allows you to be half in, half out.
Yeah.
It's not a faith that allows you to agree with some stuff and disagree with some stuff. It doesn't let you do that. It's not a faith for intellectual people. It's not. Right? It's a dogmatic faith, 100%. You either agree with all of it or you agree with none of it. There is no middle ground, which is how come when a JW leaves, they tell the person's family members and friends to stop talking to him.
Yeah.
They're not even allowed to say greeting to you. That's how that faith works. So if you're in that situation I was in, where you're not having a great time, you're living at home under your parents' roof, you're eating their food, they're paying for your school fees and whatnot, so you can't express how unhappy you are. The most important thing you need to do is learn to admit to yourself, first of all, that you are unhappy and why you are unhappy, and then what it is that you want to do as soon as your circumstances permit it, which will then lead to drawing up a plan inside yourself. You don't have to draw out a plan on paper or anywhere where anybody can discover it. Yeah. It can just be inside your head. So if, for example, you're 15 years old, right, and you know that, your mates at school are getting to explore, their new teenage bodies, they're having experiences that you don't get to have. All you're doing is, family study and personal study and going out to preach and all that, and you don't like it, right? Yeah. What you then need to do is sit down inside your head, plot out a course of action over the next maybe 3 to 4 years that will get you from where you are to where you want to be. So if, for example, your escape from that situation is university, then that means that there are some certain grades that you need to get. Yeah. So then you throw yourself into getting those grades, right? If to get to university, it means that, like in my case, before you go off to university, you have to be baptized. Otherwise, my parents didn't trust you to leave home. So if it means that you have to get baptized in JW faith, which means you have to do the study and all that, grit your teeth and do it. Right? Yeah. Grit your teeth and do it. That is not the time to start to rebel and drag your feet, because you have a bigger aim in mind. So do it. If you need to dance, to lead people on, even though you will classify that as deception. But if you need to do it, you need to do it. Because if you don't do it, then you might not get the life you want. Yeah. And this is especially key for kids and teenagers growing up in JW world. The JWs are, I don't know if you're aware, they have a thing against higher education. Yeah. A very, very, very big problem with it. And the reason for that, and I know this because my dad was a pretty high-ranking JW who had access to certain information that regular JWs didn't. And as a result, I had access to that information too. Apparently, their retention rate for JWs who go to university is under 20%. Wow. So essentially, once the kids get into higher education and start learning how to think, yes, and start experiencing the world from a wider angle, they lose more than 80% of those kids. That is telling something. So which is why they have an aggressive policy against higher education. That is why they do it. So if you're in that situation, you should know that already the organization is doing everything it can to make sure that you don't have a life, to make sure that you don't have a future. So you need to give yourself a chance. So whichever grades you need to get, you need to smash those grades. Whichever good behavior you need to be on, you need to be on it. If it means that the double life you want to live at school, you can't live it because you can't risk getting caught, you have to make that sacrifice. Unfortunately, you have to make that sacrifice because you have a goal, and when you get to your goal, then you can pay yourself back for all those years of self-denial that you had, right? So again, as I'll reiterate once again, the most important thing is to know what is happening inside your head, to understand what it is that you want, and then to draw a mental plan based on these things that you want that will take you from A to B over a certain course of years. And that's how I did it. So I started drawing my plan when I was 16. I remember I just finished doing my O levels. What you would call WAEC. I just finished doing mine. So I was about to start my A levels, and I knew that my A level program is 1 year. So I knew that potentially 12 months from now I could be leaving the house. I could be getting my freedom.
Yeah.
Right. So all I need to do over the next 12 months is get these grades, and have this certain minimum base level of behavior and get baptized. I need to do this over the next 12 months, and I'll have everything I ever wanted. And I did, and that's exactly what I did. I got the grades. So I did 3 A-level subjects: geography, business studies, and economics. I got ABC, which were the best grades of anyone else in my family up until that point.
ABC.
I got baptized. I remember it was either a circuit assembly or a special assembly, whatever it was.
Is it immersion baptism or sprinkling or?
Yeah, it's proper immersion baptism.
Okay.
Like full. Yeah, I did that. And then I ended up getting to Ignatian University where, I had 1 year of, I lost my virginity. I had some those experiences before I eventually then transferred.
Necessary purity, culture bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, great now. So, now, how many years now? I'm counting in my head. Is it up to more than 10 years you've been an atheist? How long?
Yeah, so that was 2007. So that is 14 years now.
You get experience. So, please, we need recommendations. What resources can you guide new atheists and young atheists like us to? Maybe books, blogs, podcasts, YouTube channels. Can you give us some recommendations of the tip of your head?
To be honest, like in my time, because obviously it's different now. Because, the internet is much more of a thing now.
Yeah,
it wasn't the case in 2007. In my time, there was a book. I usually don't like talking about atheism in terms of read this book or watch this podcast, because it sounds almost like I'm steering someone toward it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but if I could recommend one book that sort of opened my mind, like really, really, really opened my mind. It wasn't even, you can't even call it a book. It's like 30 pages or something. It's a pamphlet, right?
Okay.
It was called it's called Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris. Ooh. It's available online as a free download. It's a PDF file.
Okay.
Literally, once I read that thing in 2007, like once I got to the last page, it was just so obvious inside my head that, right, not only do I identify as atheist now, I then realized that to an extent, all my life I had actually been atheist. I never believed in this stuff. It's just that I never allowed myself to acknowledge that I didn't believe in it. So if there's one book that sort of really opened my mind and made it possible to think, that it would probably be that. It was called Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris. Now, bear in mind that, again, because I was raised in a Christian background, so everything I'm saying skews toward Christianity. Yeah. For people who go down the Mubarak Bala route, who are transitioning from Islam to atheism. Now that's a completely different route altogether. And to be honest, I'm not qualified to say how that one goes. The one thing I can say is that route is a lot more difficult. Very life-threatening, literally. It's not just that it's life-threatening. Islam is a lot more anti-intellectual than Christianity. They're both anti-intellectual, but Islam is significantly worse. So the critical thinking ability needed to even question at a very basic level. So most Muslims do not have that ability, unfortunately. Because that is what Islam has been expressly designed to do. It has been expressly designed to beat out your critical reasoning and your rational thinking. It's been expressly designed to do that. Islam now is where Christianity was maybe 600 years ago. Yeah, it's a mess. Serious mess. So it's a lot more difficult to transition, someone coming from an Islamic background into humanism or atheism or agnosticism or all those related things. So to be honest, I can't really say how it would work for someone from that kind of background, which is, I can only speak for someone coming from a Christian background, which is why everything we've said on this podcast has skewed towards Christianity.
Yeah.
However, I can always point such people toward, I think Mubarak Bala, that's the atheist in Kano, who is in prison in Kano. I think he maintained a blog, if I remember correctly, and he also had a very active Facebook page, which I believe is still up. And he had this sort of like mini library of texts that were expressly designed for Muslims and for people coming from sort of like culturally Arab backgrounds to transition out of dogmatic faith. So I'm sure if you could Google him, just look for his Twitter handle, his Facebook page, I think you'll find some of those resources there.
Wow, that's really appreciate that, man. I didn't have because Islam, I don't even talk too much about Islam because you can't talk about what you don't know.
Understand.
So now, do you think religion is one of the contributing factors to the state of this country, to the way Nigeria is?
Yes, I definitely think that religion is one of the factors that makes Nigeria what it is now. And obviously, there is going to be the perception that I'm saying this because I'm quite publicly irreligious, but over and beyond the ideological disagreements that I have with the concept of organized religion and certain ideological, theological tenets of Christianity and Islam as they're practiced in Nigeria. The fact is that what these religions generally, the way that they are practiced in Nigeria, the way they are used in Nigeria is in support of the status quo, basically. So religion on its own is not necessarily something which protects those in power. On its own, it can be used both ways. It can be used either way. But in Nigeria, it's used to protect the status quo. Yeah. It's used to protect the establishment. So during the abolition era in the United States, the Black church was a very important institution in dismantling slavery. So it was used against power, right? Nigeria is quite the reverse. In Nigeria, the church or the mosque, or the institution of organized religion, is used to maintain the existing power structure. So it's not rare to see people who hold the political and economic power in Nigeria also being the ones who mount the pulpits or who sit at the front in the churches, or who have special status in the mosques and whatnot, who are patrons of the masjids and of the cathedrals. That's the unfortunate reality in Nigeria. That's what the Nigerian religious institution does. It protects power. It hobnobs with power. It doesn't stand on the side of people. It stands on the side of power. And the obvious fallout of this, the obvious implication of this is that whenever there's a choice to be made between standing with the people in a very obvious way and standing with power, the church, which is supposed to stand with the people based on, the sort of teachings preached by Jesus of Nazareth and the Prophet Muhammad. Instead, these institutions end up sort of chewing their mouths and not saying anything either way, just sort of sitting on the fence and not taking a defined position. And the most relevant, the most recent example of this obviously will be NSAS. Yeah. When by and large, the Nigerian religious establishments either refused to stand on the side of young people who were demanding for an end to police brutality, or actively sided with the government, which was very much the case with the Islamic establishment, and said that, look, protesting against the government is not permitted in Islam. So that's, that is the role that religion plays in Nigeria. It protects the status quo. It does not stand on the side of the people. It doesn't help advance the cause of humanity, unfortunately.
That's so true, man. That is so goddamn true. Yeah. So, bro, where can we find you online? We don't want to find you physically. Where can we find you online and all that you do?
Well, I mean, up until a few hours ago, I would have said go to my Twitter handle at Hundeyin. But now that Now that your government has banned Twitter, well.
What is the backup? What backup?
So you can find me. You can always find me on Facebook. Okay. Same name, David Hundeyin. I'm on LinkedIn as well, okay. David Hundeyin. I've run a Substack publication called West Africa Weekly. So that's www.westafricaweekly.substack.com.
Okay.
So if you join that mailing list, you can also get to have one-on-one. You speak to me one-on-one, and then of course for those whom I have a bit of a rapport with, then we exchange email addresses, we exchange numbers, we chat on WhatsApp. Now that WhatsApp is going to be a problem going forward because if you read the notice that the Ministry of Information put out, basically WhatsApp is not registered, it's not required to be licensed by the ministry. In other words, there's a good chance that somebody's going to be reading your chats. So I don't know about WhatsApp going forward. I don't know about it. Maybe Signal, because Signal is like fully encrypted and hasn't been compromised to the best of my knowledge.
We'll find a way around it.
But yeah, they
are too daft to hold us down in that way.
Oh yeah, they are. But the thing is, all they need, they don't need to do it themselves. All they need to do is just have some money to pay the Israeli guys to do it. That's the thing. So as long as they have that money, then we might be in trouble.
That's true. Those Israeli guys are nuts. Anyway, when we get there, we'll cross that bridge.
Exactly.
Cross that bridge. So bro, thank you for honoring this. I really appreciate you giving us some of your time, especially knowing what you do.
No worries. I'm always very happy to do this.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with David. Check the show notes below. All the links you referred to of Mubarak, his own links, how to reach him. Please check the show notes below. Subscribe, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Free Thinkers Hangout, Free Thinkers Hangout on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is available on Android too now. Please join us. We create rooms at least once a week. Let us discuss. If you're an atheist, wherever you are, come in, share your thoughts. Let's rub minds. Let's know that we did. Let's know we are here. So please check us out. Free Thinkers Hangout on Clubhouse. So that's all for this week. Have a great week ahead. Take care.